Hello and welcome to this course. My name is Odilon Loyer, but you can call me Odi, and I will be the one taking you through this beginner course with Blender. I will try to explain you of the best Blender in general and 3D concepts of polygonal modeling. So whether you have a great experience or no idea of what 3D is, I will try to teach you Blender as the best I can until you can become autonomous. Just a quick word about myself. I've been working with Blender since more than 10 years now. I started on really shady versions as the 249B, which now looks super scary and not intuitive at all. But I followed the development with a lot of interest of Blender and used it throughout those years until the version that we know right now and the great software it became. And so right now I'm a digital sculptor at Koenigsegg, which is a hypercar brand in Sweden. And there I'm working on Blender as well as other softwares as Autodesk Alias. I'm mainly using this one, but I have more experience in Blender overall. And so throughout the years, I had to work in different projects with different timelines, processes, and tools, and I hope that I can like condense this experience in this course and try to give you the best of Blender so that you can really start to do your own stuff. I try to share a maximum in general about Blender and everything. I'm sharing some free assets on Gumroad, like scripts and shaders, etc. And I also did a conference at the official yearly Blender conference in Amsterdam in 2019, uh, talking about how Blender could be integrated in the automotive industry, even though the automotive industry didn't wait for me to do this and took a big advantage of the tool during the past couple of years. And it's pretty impressive to see how Blender is growing in the design community. And I'm glad that you decided to actually start Blender. And yeah, I will try my best to share with you the good stuff of Blender and give you the will to continue. So let's start. So I think you know enough about me, and now it's time to talk about the course itself. Um, as I told you, I have something like 10 years of experience with Blender, and even though it takes much practice, I would like to help you to get most of the knowledge I have in the shortest time. Basically, this is just a shortcut, so that then the only thing that you require is practice and doing project, but the knowledge will be here. And to do so, I plan to do 3 courses. This one is just kind of the introduction. It's kind of the most important because here you will actually learn the system behind Blender. You will learn specific tools, but also general knowledge about 3D, which will help you um, know enough things to find the rest by yourself. If you have any question or anything, you will know what to search for at least, and you will already be able to do most of the thing that you do or that you want to do. Then the second course would be a more advanced modeling one, where we would see advanced modeling techniques and also how to develop a more creative process based on specific tools and organization and a system to get to a professional result and with a professional workflow and making sure that you can use that in any situation. And the third one of the courses would be like the nerdy one, the super specific one, to just push more into some kind of small bits of Blender that are, at least to me, super interesting, but that can seem a bit hard to get into. For example, scripting or procedural shading, more real-time rendering stuff, rigging, drivers, um, animation in general, like all of these things I would like to explore with you and to present to you. And this wouldn't be like something that where each episode would rely on the previous one, but it would be more like each episode is completely independent and treats or talks about a specific point of Blender that you may find an interest in. So this one will be a bit different than the two others, but uh, here you have the beginner course, and I really want to do the advanced modeling one because I think that with those two you can have a pretty good, pretty strong base to then do anything you want by your own, which I think is the goal of all of these, is to find this kind of creative freedom here. So yeah, I would really be keen on doing those and to take you through this journey. And whether you have some knowledge about 3D or not at all, I want you to be able to be completely free after that. So as I said, this course is the first step. So here we will get familiar with the concepts of polygonal 3D. The goal is not to show every feature because there are way too many in Blender, especially like if you take, I don't know, video editing and stuff that are like super specific but not really needed, kind of, or at least not for our process. But it would be rather to show you and explain how things work, how to approach modeling, and more globally to help you understanding the system behind Blender. Because once you get the system, learning new things and exploring new part of the software is super easy. We will go from theory to practice slowly with examples and small products we can find on Le Manouche. And by doing that, the goal is that you get the good reflexes, you get the good structure for your work, and to become autonomous in developing shapes, basically. And so, one question that you could ask yourself is why Blender? And I just want to talk quickly about that because I think it's important. So I personally have a strong connection with this software, and I don't think it's great only because it's free, but mainly because of the philosophy behind. And this philosophy is basically encouraging any individual to push Blender as much as they can to unknown lands, basically. And everyone can make Blender their own in a lot of different ways. And I actually really encourage you to watch this interview of the creator of Blender that can maybe help you to understand the software better. But the great thing to me is that everything in Blender is following a system. And for those who ever used like Alias, for example, you know the pain it is to discover that Control Z is not available for a few functions, but for some it works. And some super similar actions sometimes require confirmation, and for some other you don't, or because it will just reverse the action you just did. Blender have less and less of these inconsistencies because they have opinions on what should be, and they stick to it as much as they can and do everything around it, even if it means like recoding half of the software. The Blender team is really about just making the best thing possible, and they actually restarted from scratch a few times, like when they went from 2.4x to 2.5, and also recently 2.8 was like a huge change where they didn't even like hesitate on that. They were just like, we need to do these new things, so let's build this from scratch. And I really like this mindset of just the goal is to do the best thing possible, not to save money or anything. And yeah, Blender is just a great piece of software. It offers a full package, letting you model with advanced tool, animate, sculpt, shade, sorry, render, composite, simulate fluids and smoke, export to other software, script your own tool with Python, do camera tracking, video editing. I mean, the whole thing is great. And if you put enough effort, you can do whatever you want. And you have quite some time before you get to the limit of what is possible with it. And even when you will get there, you will have enough knowledge to find workarounds and be creative also in finding solutions and not just in the thing that you're doing with Blender, which I really love. And I'm not saying that the software is perfect. It's just evolving for the better, and the team of around 20 people, I think, for now, uh, are making sure that the software becomes more powerful and well designed through a lot of releases. And also, one great thing about Blender is the community. And by that, I mean that 95% and even more of the problems you will encounter can be resolved by a super simple Google search. And if you get to the other 5%, as I said already, it means that you have a proper mastery of the software. So you have a long way to go, and the community will be always there for you. And this is, I think, really specific to Blender or open source project in general, but you will see how powerful this is while you discover Blender. The course will be structured as follows. First, we will start with an introduction that we are actually currently doing. The rest of this introduction will be about getting familiar with the polygonal modeling approach with some super simple theory, because to me, understanding how something works is the key to using it. And so I'll explain those super simple concepts to you so that you get whatever you are we will do later. And this episode will end with a small guide on how to install Blender, which version to choose, etc. Then we will open Blender and talk about the interface, the main concept behind it, how to arrange it to fit your workflow, the workspaces, etc. Episode 2 will be about the navigation in the viewport, how to not be lost in the 3D view, focus on what you need, how to work with different views, and we'll start to learn the first shortcuts, which are super important in Blender, and also tweak some small parameters to make your navigation as fluid as possible. After this, we will start playing with the object by learning how to modify their position, scale, rotation, learning new shortcuts again, and basically getting more familiar with those concepts that are the base of polygonal modeling. Fourth episode will be time for us to alter the shape of the object, learning about the different modes, modification that are specific to polygonal 3D, and start shaping things around. Um, the next episode will be about non-destructive workflow, which is a great thing in Blender, basically consisting in using what we call modifiers that will perform actions on our object in real time, with always the possibility to hide or cancel those transformations. This will be the last episode of introduction of the workflow, basically. Then the following episodes will be about practical examples on the things we learned, and this exercise will be showcasing different modeling techniques and approaches, which will consist in remodeling an existing product that you can find on Le Manouche. Uh, Also, we will learn how to keep a clean file using layers, I mean called collection in Blender, but this kind of thing, and how to use a naming system and basically keeping this good organization so that you don't get lost. Then we will also learn how to do some super simple renders, but like clean and good enough to present the product. The goal here won't be to go too far in rendering because it's not the purpose of this course, but at least to give you the basic tools so that you can, on the one hand, do good renders, but also just understanding the concepts and the thing you need to use so that you can push this by your own and get better. And yeah, just an introduction to render basically, but the goal here will be more about Blender overall. And we will end with some conclusion on what we did, what will be the advanced course about, and also some tools and technique that maybe you would like to use. And I will keep the Blender completely vanilla, so no add-on or plugins, or at least nothing to install on top of Blender, maybe just activating some stuff. But in this end of the course, I will tell you about some stuff that you may want to install so that you can get even more efficient in your workflow. And every episode will consist of an introduction, which I call philosophy, behind like the topic of this very episode. And after the episode, it will end with a conclusion on what you just learned, so that you can watch them kind of independently and not be lost in the overall thing. Also, as you can see, the interface of the video is a bit specific. So on top of writing the name of the episode and what we are doing right now, on the side, you will see you will see some shortcuts that will be displayed in red, and you will see also some vocabulary that is specific to Blender. Those will be in some kind of yellow, and just a quick definition of it, so that the goal here is that if you know that you have some good information in one of the episodes, you can just go back to it and search for what is written on the right, but you don't have to listen to the whole episode again. Because I think it's super annoying to have to do that. And so you will see just things will be written on the right, so it will be easier for you to follow or to come back on specific knowledge. So before we end this course, let me explain the basic principle behind everything we're going to discover here, polygonal 3D. Wikipedia tells us that in 3D computer graphics, polygonal modeling is an approach for modeling objects by representing or approximating the surfaces using polygon meshes. And so basically here, the definition of Wikipedia is telling us that objects are defined by a mesh. And this is the core principle here. Indeed, modeling in Blender consists in organizing points, segments, and faces to create a kind of mesh that represents your object. On this mesh, we will be then able to do diverse actions like automatic stuff like smoothing or adding polygons, or manual like extruding some faces. We will go more in detail about this mesh we are going to create, but for now what you have to know is that the goal will be to make shapes based on moving points and a global net of faces that we have to create. What I like about this definition is approximating their surfaces. And to me, this is very true, and it aligns with my way of seeing polygonal modeling. And here, let's just draw a quick analogy by comparing Blender to Photoshop and softwares like Alias, Rhino, or any other surfacic modeling tool to Illustrator. So we can say that Blender is as unprecise compared to Rhino than Photoshop is unprecise compared to Illustrator. In Rhino, every curve you make can be scaled as you want. It will always be super precise like in Illustrator. But the geometry you generate in Blender, on the other side, is made out of a finite number of polygons, which means that the number of geometry you will need depends on the scale of the model, the same way as you're limited by the number of pixels in Photoshop, and if you do a bigger artwork or image, you need more pixel to keep the definition at like a nice thing to look at. The analogy goes even further if you take into account the fact that ultimately Illustrator objects has to be transformed into pixel in real time to be displayed on your screen, and the same happens with surfacing since it's usually going to a tessellation phase, which transfer it to polygons so that it's easier for the graphic engine to help you visualize the shapes. So this is just a quick, simple analogy, but I would say that you should just keep it in your mind, and maybe it will help you drawing some similarities with what you already know, or at least what is easier to just visualize, since it's like 2D and Photoshop and Illustrator are kind of known and settled since years. So yeah, just keep in mind we will be modifying a mesh or creating a mesh, and the whole thing behind that will be to make the mesh as close as the shape we want as we can. And there will be some techniques for that and some tools that we are going to see here. But for now, let's install Blender and let's get familiar with it. First thing we want to do here is to actually go to Blender's official website, which is blender.org. Super easy, but if you type just Blender in Google search, you will mainly find kitchen tools. Anyway, you go on blender.org, and the first thing I could say is that I really encourage you to look around this website, because they explain quite a lot on the Blender project, like as an open source project that they develop, and you can learn about the how it's funded, who are the people in the team, what are the features of the software, and some news of like future development and everything. And I think this is a super interesting website to just go around. I used to go all the time basically, but yeah, I let you do that on your own. But for now, we desperately want to run Blender, so let's just go easy and click on the download Blender button, and here we will have a choice to make. Basically, you can click on this big blue button and it will download the installer for Blender, but what I personally like to do is to download the portable version, the zip one. And this is for a few reasons. First thing is there is often releases of Blender, and I like to just store them as folders into a specific folder, and switch from version easily. And the thing with the installer is I don't like having multiple versions of Blender, but when I click on my Blender file, it opens it with an older version. I like to, I have a few versions of Blender in my taskbar, and I just choose which one depending on which project I want to work on. Sometimes it's easier, at least to me, to manage with just simple folders that I can move around. And also, I like to use the portable zip thing because it's kind of a hack. If you have an IT department in your company that you would have to ask to install Blender, if you download the zip, you can just run Blender, and then you don't have to ask them, which means that you can keep up with the new releases of Blender without having to every time ask for administrator rights so that they can actually install Blender on your computer, because this can just make you lose, I don't know, 1 week of uh, politic and diplomacy that you don't need. So to me, downloading the zip version is kind of more access to the freedom of Blender, because you can also put it on the USB key so that you don't have to install it anywhere. You just start it from there. And it's also good when you want to try like an experimental version of Blender, as you can find them there in this menu with the future releases, with the new features, etc. But yeah, it's your call really. I will go for the portable version here, but I let you choose. But knowing that the installer is super simple, I will explain more for the portable way of doing it. So once the file is downloaded, you just have to choose a folder to extract and unzip it. And what I like to do in this case is actually to do an app folder in which I keep all my version of Blender. So let's just extract it here. So here we are. It uncompressed it. Sometimes this takes a while. I don't know why. So maybe you would prefer 7-zip to do it actually. But anyway, we have our folder, and if we open it, we so finally it unzipped our folder, and it's in our app folder, so that everything is at the same place. And now we can just open it, and you will see a bunch of, I don't know, files that you probably don't want to mess with. But then there is the one with the logo, the .exe Blender, and this is the one we have to launch. So once you do it, this will pop up, and soon here we are. So the folder got unzipped, and you have this beautiful folder that you can now open. I don't know why sometimes sometimes the unzipping of the main folder takes quite a while, and this is something I noticed quite a few times. But just be patient, and it will happen. And so when you open the folder, then you get a whole bunch of files that are libraries and stuff you probably don't want to mess with. But as you can see, you have the Blender one, beautiful blender.exe. So let's just open that. And here we are finally in front of Blender. And before we go any further, we will just end this episode and see the first step of Blender in the next one. So I, I just encourage you to do one thing, is to go in your taskbar and to pin this shortcut so that you can open Blender whenever you want to create shapes. And yeah, let's just see the beginning of the interface discovery on the next episode. For now, to summarize a bit, we can say that we saw what will the course be about, and we talked about Blender in itself and the polygonal approach, and we ended with installing Blender. So this was really basic and a way to get you into the course. In the next episode, we will talk about the interface and how you have to understand the philosophy behind it. So see you in the next episode.